Good evening and welcome to Wrestle Talk with Arabbidb3aver. I'm your host, the elusive Arabbidb3aver. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day out there in the world of wrestling. And today we have a very special guest with us. The Notorious Storm will be joining us. And without further ado, let's just jump right in with him. Notorious Storm, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing very, very, very welcome. I would like to welcome you, my esteemed guest, the Notorious Storm, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here with me today. My fans and myself have some questions for you today. Are you ready for them?
I'm ready to go whenever you are.
All right. If it's okay with you, let's talk about how you broke into wrestling, what drew you to the sport, and who was your biggest influence getting involved in it?
So, what drew me into the sport was I'm originally from North Central Illinois, a little small town called Amboy. And up there, we had Windy City Pro Wrestling. And during one of the fairs, they came to the town and put on a show. And I was like, man, I was just so captivated by all of that. And then I grew up with my grandpas, constantly watching AWA and NWA every Saturday morning, just yelling and screaming at the TV. So that kind of really pushed me into it. I kind of always knew that I wanted to be a professional wrestler, and the day that I turned 18, I was still in high school. But the day I turned 18, I went and I joined Windy City Pro Wrestling. I drove 2.5 hours to Chicago every Friday since school got done, and would get my teeth kicked in pretty much every weekend by guys like Steve Boz and just a whole bunch. Christopher Daniels had just graduated from Windy City Pro Wrestling at the time, but he would still like randomly come back. A whole slew of guys that were up there. Set up the ring, train, get my butt kicked every weekend, and then come back to high school, and then turn around and go back to all over Chicago, Indiana, Southern Wisconsin, all that stuff. So that's how I got into the business.
Well, I know you worked in Florida for many years and you took some time off. What was your leading desire to get back into the world of professional wrestling?
So, um, when I had a small injury where I slightly tore my trap on the right hand side. That kind of put me out of the business for a little while, and I needed to. While I was healing, I needed a job, and I ended up as a television news reporter for several years, and was traveling around the country doing that. Every 3 years, they kind of like just push you to a different television news station. During that time, I gained some weight, and just the last several years, I got back into shape. I'm in actually better shape now than what I was when I was in Florida. And one of my buddies saw one of my pictures that's still in wrestling. It was like, you need to get your butt back in the ring and give it another go. He's like, you're looking great, so go ahead and give it another shot. And went down to Orlando, did a kind of like a trial run thing down there to figure out if I could still do it or not. I did. Then I went back up north and did a full show where being in front of an audience again kind of like really gave me that bug. So that's what really sparked it. So
I had no idea that you worked in news and broadcasting. So I was a part of a CW syndicate at one point in time, and we did church shows all around the country. They would send us every 3 months to different church syndicates to record their broadcast, get it set out, and do it. And that's actually what kind of got me into the world of wrestling, is because one of the syndicates that we were in, which was in Nashville, Tennessee, which was Saul USWO, they were looking for a television station to put themselves on at the time, and it ended up being a CW syndicate, but it was owned by Fox at that point in time.
yeah.
And it just kind of sort of happened. It was just one of those things like, we need television and we're looking for it, and it just bounced in there. So it, being behind the scenes into the production and audio production and video production side of it, and then also being in front of the camera when you have to be in front of the camera, say stuff, it builds character inside of you. So that's really cool. I had no idea that was part of your life at that point in time, and thank God, because when you cut promos or anything now, you're so used to being in front of the camera that it's just natural for you. So it makes it.
I will say that my comfortability in front of the camera really engaged, and it was a lot easier. It was different because I wasn't like I didn't cut a whole lot of promos beforehand, but like I was always okay being in front of a crowd because you could hear people, and like you had that kind of like that expectation of hearing something when you're doing it. But when you're in a broadcast studio doing news, it is dead silent. And
Absolutely.
so that is so different because like you're wanting to like hear something, get some kind of notoriety out of what you're saying, but it's nobody's allowed to say anything, nobody's allowed to talk. So that took some getting used to, but I would say that my being more comfortable on camera has definitely come out with that. So it was a blessing in disguise.
And it's a great thing, though. Let's move on a little bit. Who would you say is your biggest competition currently, and who would you consider to be your biggest rivalry to date?
That's a tough one because I mean I'm new to the Tennessee scene, so I haven't really been. I mean, I've pretty much beaten everybody that I've gone against so far. So as far as like rivalry, I don't think I really have it yet. And honestly, for this go around, I'm really pushing myself forward a little bit more this time, and I'm really like looking out for me a little bit more when it comes to like calling matches and how I'm doing things. Before I was just kind of that guy that helped get everybody over, which is good. I mean, that's a reasonable spot to be in. But I wasn't getting better. And this time I'm really challenging myself to get better and really push myself and to push myself out of my own comfort zone and do things I haven't done before.
Well, let's talk about that for a second before we move on. So you said that you were the guy that was putting a lot of people over. Do you have any words of wisdom or advice for those that are young inside the business that they're stuck inside that spot and they don't know how to move on and move up? What would you say to them to help them better themselves and educate themselves to get to the next level?
I think the biggest thing with that is definitely challenging yourself and not getting stuck in the same. You have your 3, 4, 5 move set that you're, like I have to hit these things. Like, no, you don't. You don't have to hit anything. Some of these guys, they come out of a training school and they think that they've got. Obviously, everybody once they get that graduation, that kiss of blessing and saying like, oh yeah, you can go out and get your own bookings now. Everybody thinks that they know everything, and I myself was the exact same way. But in reality, it's all a learning point. And when it comes to these younger guys, I say I've gone through like 5 different trainers. Not gone through them, but like spent time with them and really like went through their developmental program.
Honing your craft, right?
Yeah, like their things, because you're always learning something different. And get a good group of guys to ride with. That's kind of a big thing too. Guys that are going to rip your match apart when you're driving home. Scott Hall. When I was in Orlando, I somehow fell into a house where I was actually able to live with Larry Zbyszko and Scott Hall, and Santana Garrett as well. So like we were kind of like a little like a. I always call it the somewhat WWE house kind of thing because it was, former legends and stuff. They would rip my match apart as soon as we left the building all the way back to Orlando, wherever it was that we were going, just absolutely tear it apart. And as soon as we got into the house, we would plug in the camera and we'd watch it again on TV, and they break down, this is exactly what you did wrong. So having that kind of stuff there. Now, if you have somebody that's equally your level and they're ripping you apart, that's kind of like, all right, like maybe you don't know what you're talking about kind of mentality. It's good to have somebody have a second set of eyes, but ride with people that you trust and can get out there. And then with that, you'll be amazed with how many guys will actually like just start making those guys in the same car work each other, just kind of like how they did back in the old days, because they have more time to talk about what they want to do and certain things with that. And you just get better matches all around.
And it builds better chemistry inside the ring and outside the ring. Your chemistry will actually start to show to the fan base, and the fans respond differently when you have that chemistry. So that's a big thing. I've noticed that from running the roads with some people too, is once you start talking and once you actually have that chemistry with somebody and that person trusts you and you trust them, and you're not going to hurt each other or intentionally hurt each other, because accidents happen. We all know that accidents happen, but you're not going to intentionally hurt each other. Your matches just start to flow and they start looking better. Everything starts zooming better, and it starts moving into what we call the social media world, where your matches will start getting put out there by people in social media. And let's talk about that for a little bit. Uh, so with all the changes coming in the wrestling world, have you noticed a huge need for social media presence and a following in order to get your bookings and everything now?
It's definitely, I think that it's definitely a key factor. It's not like it was back in the 90s and early 2000s where you could throw your match up on YouTube and your match would speak for itself, and
Right.
watch that and go. Like, when you look at the WWE website now, when you're trying to fill out their job application, which is basically all that it is, what on like the second or third scroll down, it's what's your social media presence. And unless you have that, and it's good for them to have that, because that shows them that you're marketable. People are already engaging with you. People are already liking you. So it's not going to take them, a whole nother 8 months or a year of training you to become this charismatic person, to be able to talk, and to get people to like you. So I think it's key, especially if you want to really move up. The way that I'm looking at it now is, um, as my following is growing, taking it to the other promoters, trying to branch out, not so much regionally, but even nationally, and be like, look, not only are you booking me, but I'm going to put your stuff on my page. So now your stuff is going to get seen by X amount of people, depending on how many ever followers I have on whatever social media brand.
Right. Absolutely.
So as a professional wrestler nowadays, to be able to move up, I feel like you have to bring more to the table now than what you used to, because your skill isn't just all they care about anymore.
Well, it's not only not your skill that they care about anymore, but it's not about who you know. It's about who you are now versus who you know. And that makes a big difference, I think, in my mind, in the business for looking at people and trying to find people. And we do Wrestle Talk with Arabbidb3aver all over. We travel all the time. We try to put videos out of people and get them noticed and get them seen, and try to make sure that they are getting the best footage that they can get with the best moves that they can get in the best sets that they can get, so that they can get that social presence. Because there's a lot of people in the indies that deserve to move to that next level, but because they don't have any media presence, any social media presence, there's nobody following them. And I think that's one of the biggest things that needs to be addressed inside the indies. And thank God, for the National Wrestling Alliance. Thank God for SPCW. Thank God for people that are like that are actually trying, School of Morton, that are trying to get their people noticed, that are trying to get a presence in the business and trying to move through. Speaking of social media, for those of you out here wanting to follow you and learn more about you and support you, what's the best way to do so?
So the quickest way is to find me on Facebook and message me there. It is just Notorious Storm on Facebook, and then YouTube, official Notorious Storm, and then Instagram is storm.notorious. So I'm very active on all three, constantly re-engaging with content creators and whoever comments and stuff like that. I'm on it pretty quick.
Yeah, I can attest to that. We've reached out to him several times and he's got back to us immediately or within a few hours of us messaging him. On your YouTube, you recently had two videos that really caught my eye. The first was about how to get booked at shows you're not scheduled for, and the second is a catch of your bookings that recent place that you took off at. So for the first one, how important is it to get somewhere early, help set up, stay late, help tear down, and to work the show, even if it's only as a cameraman, security detail, or what have you?
It's super important, because that's where you talk. That's where you get to meet the promoter, and that's where you get to do lots of. It's so important. I just said this in my last video. When it comes to setting up the ring, especially now that I'm a little bit older and I've wrestled in everything from the IWA Mid South ring to crappy 14-foot rings to wooden rings to high spots rings to recently retired WWE rings. Setting up the ring shows you a lot. So for a safety standpoint, it's kind of a big factor, because you get to see where the boards are at, what kind of padding you're landing on, if there's different soft spots that are in the padding, if there's a shift in the boards where
Right.
padding doesn't all the way go over top of the ring, certain things like that. That when the canvas and everything is set up, and when you just get to the ring, and you don't expect that stuff to be there, you take that step or you try to take that bump on that apron, all of a sudden there's steel. So there's a whole lot of injury and stuff there. Now I understand that as a professional, like expecting the ring to be to a certain standard, that's not how it is on the indies. And everybody who is a seasoned indie, I don't want to say veteran, but an indie wrestler should know that each ring is different, depending on how it's stored and how well it's taken care of throughout the years, because rings get torn apart pretty quick, and lots of promoters don't replace padding, partially because of cost, or like getting the parts to be able to do so is kind of a pain in the butt too. But so like the safety standpoint, the being able to network, to be able to talk to the promoter, to be able to meet the guys, all that, and then afterwards, I feel like I've been kind of bringing this back here in Tennessee, because it doesn't seem like a whole lot of guys do that. But like, go get dinner with some of the guys after the show. Everybody's always hungry anyway, so I've been very big about like, hey, talking to some different people, like, hey, you gotta go grab some food as we're driving home. Network that way too. Several guys have said yes. Other people have politely said no, but wanted to do it, in the future date. So it's been it's kind of a key point there too, because you just never know where some of these guys are working and where they're going to go next, and you don't know if they're going to be able to take you to the next show and all that stuff. I got SPCW literally just because of networking and just reaching out and messaging. Like, it was that episode where I was getting booked on a show I wasn't booked on, was 100% legit. I had reached out to the promoter. I asked him when they were setting up the ring, and that was pretty much it. Let him know that I was going to be there and help out. I got there. I helped him set up, got to do some stuff. The whole time, me and the promoter sitting there talking about experiences and training and like all that stuff. And then the next thing you know, he's like, well, I want to see you kind of in the ring. And then done all this talking. So I got in and I ran and I bumped around a little bit. And he's like, okay, did you bring your gear? I was like, of course I brought my gear. And he's like, well, go get it. You'll be in the Rumble. And I it wasn't a big spot. I didn't get paid for that show. But what it did do was it led to the following night in Newton, Tennessee, where I did 2 more matches, and I got a pretty decent payday that night for doing that. So,
well, it's all about making connections and proving to the bookers and the owners that you're a worker and you'll be willing to do the dirty work in order to succeed. And it gives you the references in the future for just an in-case moment. Per the second video, how important is it to market yourself and get your name out there, even with what most consider to be outlaw or indie promotions, to help you in the future?
It's super important, especially if you're on the independent circuit. I mean, marketing is all you got, and pushing and you are all you got, unless you're going to spend $20,000 a year on somewhat of an agent that might be able to get you like 1 or 2 bookings a year. Like, it's just, you are all that you have. So reaching out to everybody is key.
Well, let's hold it there for a second, because there's a lot of people who have managers inside the industry, but a lot of their managers don't know how to manage. They don't know what they're doing. They're just kind of throwing it around and getting people $15 a handshake and a hot dog. You know what I mean? So I'm not trying to be hateful or rude, but you want to be in this business not only to be the best, to be the champion, to be the one that's going to succeed, but you're going to be in this business to make money as well. You don't want to do every show for free. There are going to be times where you have to, but you don't want to do every show for free. Can you speak on that for just a moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's, once again, like, if WWE calls, are they going to call your manager? Or are they going to call you?
Right.
Who's going to answer? Like, and if they call you and all of a sudden your manager is like, well, I want to work this deal out for them, they're going to hang up, and there goes your shot, and there goes, everything. Not even just. I mean, WWE is kind of outlandish, but
right.
But if one of Al Snow's dudes from OVW called and said, hey, we're doing a run in such and such town, come on up, they're not going to want to talk to whoever. You yourself are an independent contractor, and
right.
You're supposed to really push yourself out there and really do the legwork. If you're not willing to do the legwork for yourself, why are we going to bring you in to wrestle for us and try to put more put a stable on you and or even give you a belt and for you to lead us.
And see, this isn't a hit to anybody that's got a manager out there in the indie world. Sometimes that's necessary. No. Dr. Tom talked to us and treated us very well when we were in his classes and in his school. And he always told us, if you can talk, you're always going to have a job. If you can wrestle, you're always going to have a job. But if you can if you wrestle, you'll have a job for a short time. If you can talk, you'll have a job for a short time. But if you can do both, you're always going to have a job, because there's always a need for it somewhere. And being a manager or being somebody that's in that position of supposed power with another wrestler is kind of a disadvantage in a way, because like you said, if they're talking for you all the time and you're not known, you don't have the presence, you don't have anybody, it's a real turnoff to a lot of industries. It's a real turnoff to a lot of independent wrestling companies, unless they're able to book you all together to make it work. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
And just to add to that point, and we need to be real on some of this stuff. The indies it's a cutthroat industry when it comes to that stuff. So like, you have to really put your trust, like your true trust in that person, that they're not screwing you over. I mean, like that's just what happens. I mean, some guys, say you there is a manager out there that, started to get some notoriety and started, getting guys some actual money. Well, if I'm getting $100, how much is he actually getting? All of this, like where's the truth in all of this? Because just like anybody else does, it's an envelope with cash. That's pretty much all. That's
right. Handshake, envelope with cash, and hope to see you some other time.
Yeah. There's no contracts. There's no talking. There's no any of that stuff. I personally. Not that if it was like my best friend, I might trust him even a little bit, but like, it's just not, that's not supposed to be how it is, like we should be working together. Like, hey, if he's my manager or my ringside manager or valet or whatever you want to call it, I'm going to obviously get him booked because I'm booked. But like, other than that, he's going to do his own thing to make his own money. I'm going to do my thing to make my money. And then we're going to, go off into the sunset together that way.
And there's no problem with working together with someone as your manager, or no problem whatsoever working together with somebody as a valet at all. It's just how you present yourself to the bookers, to the promoters, to these people, and how you present yourself as far as what you need in order to survive for that night, in order to do it. And we talked about it earlier. Sometimes you're going to have to take some bookings for free. You're just going to have to. It's going to happen. But what eventually happens is you become a good worker in one territory, and that territory, that promoter will put you out to other territories. Vince McMahon was kind of the master of it. The original Vince McMahon Sr. was the master of it. I've heard a lot of stories. I didn't get a chance to meet him, but one of the things that he did while the territory system was actually up and running was he said, hey, he would call AWA or NWA and say, hey, I need Chief Jay Strongbow for 3 weeks, but in return, on the backside, I'm going to give you Andre the Giant for 3 weeks so that you can have a sellout while we have a sellout, and working hand in hand with promoters like that goes a long way, as long as you're willing to tell them yes and you're willing to do something. And even if you've got a manager or a valet, the Road Warriors, great example of this. Precious Paul took them everywhere, did everything with them, learned how to book them, learned how to make sure that he was managing their finances, learned everything to a T to take care of them. But it was a package deal. They knew when they brought in Hawk and Animal, Precious Paul wasn't far behind. Even if he was just behind the scenes at the show, never got to be seen, he was always there with them, making sure that they were taken care of. And I believe in that. I really do. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I mean that's all very, very true. One of the things that kind of popped in my head, especially in the indies, is you also have to understand, though, is because of how cutthroat it is and because of how tight money is in some of these promotions, that just because you are somebody's manager doesn't mean that you're going to get to ride that coattail the same
right. Yes, sir.
That you do with everything else. And also, I've witnessed this with some of my friends who've gone up to the higher levels. You get left in the dust. Like it doesn't matter how much you guys work together and all of this other stuff. Like, they might put in a good word for you, and you can take them on their word for that, but that doesn't mean that they're going to bring you up with them. And that's kind of something too that you always have to kind of keep in your mind. Not not as big on anybody or anything like that. But I've even also heard about managers going up and the wrestler staying behind.
Yes, it happens both ways. It happens both ways. It's not just a one-way street when that happens. A great example of this was Chris Candido, right? Well, he didn't know Tammy Stitch for a long time, and then he got involved with Tammy Stitch and brought her up to the level that he was at, and made her an asset for him. But in the same return, whenever Chris Candido died, I hate to say that, but whenever he had his accident, he died. Tammy Stitch went down the opposite way. She couldn't bring nobody up with her. She couldn't hold anybody up. And of course, they were involved with one another. And that just happens. And I'm not trying to throw names out there. I'm just saying in general, there's times where that happens inside the industry. And you have to know when you're at your peak and when to leave sometimes versus letting it go to become a bad spot for you. So you don't become one of those people that are on Vice or on something like that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with that, it's kind of a double-edged sword about, I'm sure there's times where they want to give it up, the travel, the all that stuff.
But it's in your blood.
Yeah, but you have to roar the crowd, which is a huge thing, especially when you're working in front of a large audience. And then the money, obviously, when you're on that level, the money is definitely a huge driver, going from a certain lifestyle down to, I don't know when my next paycheck is. To also, contractual issues of like, oh, can I quit right now? Or I can't. I still got another 3 years on this deal, or just kind of like dragging it out, and like we see Edge did. I mean, he went out as long as he could. Now he broke his leg trying to do something he shouldn't have.
Right.
So maybe he's even thinking. And I love Edge and I love him as a performer. But maybe now he's actually thinking that, like, okay, I am, upper 50s. I should definitely start reeling this back in a little bit and start maybe taking more of a coaching role instead of a working role.
Well, absolutely. So I want to ask you about your bookings. I want to know where your next bookings are taking place for all the fans that are out there who would love to see you in action.
So August is kind of a different month for me. August 10th, I am doing a OVW tryout. And then it is the 31st. I'm actually going to be back up in Illinois doing a kind of a reunion show up there. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then I believe the 24th, I'm going to be in Rocky Top. I still have this weekend open, so I'm going to see how this goes to see if I can't work something out.
Well, there's lots of stuff going on Friday and Saturday here in Tennessee, and I'm pretty sure you can definitely get booked at some place like SPCW or NWAJCP or somewhere like that. I'm throwing that out there because I know Austin Swint is right here inside the chat. So I know that you're looking for some extra people and some people to be on Good Talent. I know that the Notorious Storm is an excellent wrestler, so he would be a great asset for you guys. If you guys are available and have the space, he would definitely do it for you. Do you know what time zone those shows are going to be in and what they're going to cost for you to be there, or anybody to be there? Sorry.
I know the Rocky Top one. That's the cheapest one. That I believe it's $5, and that's Eastern time zone. Everything that I've been doing here recently has been Eastern time zone, except the one up in Illinois. That one is Central time zone. You can also start seeing me more with School Morton. I'm actually making my TV premiere. We were up there last week or 2 weekends ago, but my TV premiere is going to be this week.
Awesome.
And then Southern States Wrestling, my TV premiere is actually going to be tonight at some point in time. So I'm up there. I think he said he's going to start, they're going to start doing their shows at the end of each month, last weekend of each month. So
School of Morton is School of Morton 505 is how you can find them. And on YouTube at Ricky Morton, you can find them directly there. And if you want to see the Notorious Storm, that's the best way to do it as of right now. And then, of course, your social media. Where's your YouTube channel and how can they get a hold of you there?
Just go to YouTube and then search up Official Notorious Storm. I have several matches up that are on there that are underneath this character. I have a plethora of old matches under my old character. that I can easily share with you if they really wanted to see different.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time here today at Wrestle Talk with Arabbidb3aver. I appreciate you coming on and being on the show. Mr. Notorious Storm, I'd love to have you back if you want to come back sometime. Until then, you can see him August 10th, and then you can see him at the end of August as well. August 10th at the OBW tapings. That's going to be happening at the School of Morton. You can definitely catch that out at SOM505 on Facebook or at YouTube.com. And you can search for Ricky Morton, and it'll be under his name. Ricky Morton is where it's going to be for the School of Morton 505. That's going to be available for you guys. And until then, you heard it here first. Thank you, Notorious Storm, for being here. Bye-bye, guys.